Record. All right, we're officially recording.
Alrighty.
A little housekeeping here.
Yeah.
How you doing today?
Oh, good. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Lots of reading
Good.
lately.
Yeah, same. It's been a pretty good reading month, actually. So
Yeah, last couple of days I've burned through quite a few books. What are you reading right now?
right now, I got one from the library that I just randomly picked called Rake by Scott Phillips.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a little library haul. So yeah, how about
Reading the
you?
new Hunger Games book.
Oh, cool.
If I didn't have a
Yeah.
book view channel, I'd DNF it.
Yeah.
I I thought it was a sequel to the trilogy,
Oh,
the three. I didn't realize it was part of the prequel process.
oh, is it? I didn't know that. So
Yeah, with me in dystopia, because I'm so much more plot centric. I don't care about the characters leading up to
yeah,
the Hunger Games trilogy. This doesn't really do it for me. Show me what
yeah,
happened after that. So, and then
yeah.
I'm going to finish it because it's a popular book, and
But
I don't know.
yeah. Oh well, that's disappointing.
Well, I also recently read. I just finished The Unworthy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Is it good?
and then this book was so fun. The Last Murder Thing in the
Oh
World.
yeah, I've seen that one around. I'll have to pick that one up.
Oh, it's so fun. It's like one of the
Is
most
it?
original murder mysteries I've ever read.
Oh
Got
really?
some post-apocalyptic, some dystopian, some
Oh
sci-fi, some
cool.
utopian. Just
Awesome.
I've already got one
Yeah,
of his other books in my cart too.
cool. I'll have to put that on my TBR for sure.
All right. What do you
So
what'd you think of it?
Blob, I loved it.
Really?
It surprised me. I didn't give it 5 stars. I gave it 4 stars.
Okay.
I was surprised because it hooked me in right away. I
Okay.
thought what I wasn't looking forward to was a big setup to the story because we're dealing with something that's magic realism or surreal, right?
Yes.
A blob.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, it might not work unless she just puts you right in the story, which she did. Like
Yes.
we start off meeting
Right away.
by, yeah.
Yes. Right away.
And I think it really worked for me because I liked Vi right
Yeah.
away. I thought she was a really well fleshed out character. I liked that she was smart and she was having the typical struggles of someone in their 20s, I
Yeah.
think, right? You know, like myself, I didn't finish university. I quit after a couple of years, so I could relate to that with her. And yeah, just finding your way in life at that stage, right? So
Yes.
yeah, I don't know. How did you feel about the beginning? And
I agree. I think that you mentioned that was a good point. That with this being a blob, just getting right into it, not
mhm,
dragging it out, giving us 40, 50 pages of backstory. So yeah, that's a good point.
yeah,
Um, I lost a little bit of love for the book toward the end.
yeah,
I like the character. This
mhm,
is her. What's that? This is Maggie Su's first novel.
yeah.
Started off as a short story, turned into an hour play, I believe, and then I
Oh,
believe it was her thesis for her PhD, if I remember
okay,
correctly. So it's evolved,
yeah,
and I love her use of first POV with this character is amazing.
hmm,
For her first debut novel, I really enjoyed being in the character's head. She was witty, she was sarcastic, she was
yeah,
self-deprecating. There was just a lot going on in there, and even though
yeah,
it's racing, the author does really well keeping you tuned into all that as this is developing.
yeah,
I like that part of it.
hmm,
Where I felt the last part of the book just kind of didn't give me what I wanted from a first person story. So she gets this blob. I felt like they were funny interactions, but it felt like they were all physically related as far as, she's got all those pictures of movie stars printed up and she's trying to tell them, grow a calf or, how
yeah,
getting this thing into things. But I never saw any kind of emotional commitment as far as what do you want as a boyfriend on the inside, not just on the outside. I kind of
right,
thought that's where the author lost me a little bit. I don't know what your thoughts are toward that.
yeah. Well, I thought what made it interesting was that the whole entire time when she was creating this perfect man or whatever, she was also constantly thinking about Luke, the failure of that relationship.
Yes.
And that was juxtaposed with this new guy that she was making out of thin air. So it was, to me, that was kind of interesting. I know what you're talking about when you say it fell off, because for me, it did towards the end. There
Yes.
was a really slow, draggy part where I kind of thought, okay, I don't know where she's going with this, but But I think what made me able to enjoy the creation of this Blob that became Bob was just her reassessing her relationship with Luke and all its failings there and what she could do, what she could have done better.
Yes.
And also, interestingly, is, how we perceive things differently than they actually are, which we saw when her mother said to her, she said, because I think Vi was a little hard on herself.
Yes,
She took
definitely.
a lot of blame for that relationship failing, but her mom pointed out, like, he wasn't that nice to you. Like, she used the example that one time, I think they're at a party and her mother overheard a snippet of conversation, and Vi's perception was that she wasn't being a good enough girlfriend, whereas her mom said, well, no, you didn't do anything wrong. He was being a jerk to you,
Yes.
So
That also,
I just thought that was interesting. And yeah, you're right. Like,
well,
yeah,
it also tied
it
into
seemed
where,
kind of superficial with the Blob relationship. That
yes,
was kind of, yeah,
it
kind of
tied
odd.
into to where she would like just up and disappear. And I think there was a scene where she's talking about she at like a New Year's Eve party, she just up and left. And he
Yeah,
didn't contact her to the next day to like, hey, what happened?
yeah,
So I could definitely see, yeah, where she's reflecting on that relationships because you see that throughout the book where
yeah,
um kind of like with you where I dropped off. I think when you're using a first POV, I like to see a chain of thought from. So you had the incident with Blob leaves Vi, and
yeah,
then she goes, her apartment floods, she's in bed for a few days, and then all of a sudden she wakes up, registers for college, feels better about her parents, tells them she didn't go to the Peace Corps. I mean, it's just like all of a sudden everything fixed itself, but I never really saw a line of thought. And
yeah,
kind of hearing you discuss it, maybe I missed it throughout the little foreshadowing threads throughout, but I just didn't feel like there was a scene that got me from one point to the other without just a little bit of POV in her mind, other than to sleep at
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, for as self-aware as she was of her own behavior, she was pretty hard on her family. Like, I think, I don't think they were as bad as she made them sound. And then, but yeah, it was like, you're right. It was kind of panicked, her response to, okay, I got to do all this stuff in quick succession. And
Yes.
Rachel is her and Bob are together or whatever. And like, she makes a big scene at Elliot's
Yeah.
family home,
I love
which I
that scene.
thought, yeah, that was really funny. Like, there are a lot of comical moments in there too. So yeah, it worked for me when it was being funny, but like you, I didn't understand how they're compressing all those things into one kind of panicked moment. She rushes out to get all this stuff done. And maybe it can be explained by just the impulsivity of youth, like when you're in that age, or she
Yes.
wasn't thinking clearly. I mean, she made a lot of bad decisions for herself, and she drank a lot and stuff, but I don't know. I think I couldn't decide either if she had a drinking problem or if it was just normal kind of like finding your way binge drinking, or like, yeah, I wasn't sure about that either, but
If she was in her mid-20s and that was a drinking
yeah,
problem, I'd probably have to reassess my 20s as well.
but yeah. Yeah, so but yeah, no, you're right, it did seem rushed there in that part too, but I don't know. I really also enjoyed, like I said, the supporting cast of characters that made it work well for me. Like, Rachel and then um, Ivan and Elliot and her mother and father and, her brother. My biggest fear of this book, like not fear, but what I was hoping wouldn't happen, didn't. I was hoping that this author wouldn't wind things up with it all being a hallucination, or oh,
Oh,
she was, like,
yeah.
oh, she woke up and the dream was over and it was all a dream or something like that. Or,
If she
because
had
that's
done that, we probably would not be doing this right now.
no, that would have been really bad. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I
uh,
yeah. It's a good novel. For a first novel, I'll definitely read something second that or her next book that she reads. I'll definitely have interest in that because
yeah.
she had a really good voice. Let me ask you this because this kind of popped in
Mhm.
my mind as I was reading this. Could this have been written where a man finds the blob and is going to create the perfect girlfriend?
Yeah. Hmm. That's interesting. That's a really good question. Probably, but I mean, the banter and the dialogue would have been completely different, and he would have had to be in. a totally different, well, maybe not. He could have been a student as well.
Yeah.
I was going to say a different personality. Like if that were to happen, I think like that extraordinary of an event, I think you'd have to make the rest of his life pretty mundane for it to
Yes.
work. Like I wouldn't have him as a professional or as a guy with it all going on.
Yeah.
If he was to do that, I would also have written him as a student as
Okay.
well. I think that's where I would have approached that. I think it could have worked probably,
So
but what do you think?
where I
Yeah,
went with this line of thought was in the book, one of the things she talks about is reading her mom's romance novels
right.
and how this is shaped her view of love.
Yeah,
So I thought back to myself listening to R&B music in the 90s, all the songs that told us what love was, what it felt like to fall out of love, and how that shapes. I mean, we're being sold a product in essence, and
yeah,
sometimes we get buyer's remorse. So
yeah,
I kind of felt if it was written from a male point of view doing that, it would be somebody that was disillusioned with what society is selling them
right.
as love or,
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah, and I think we're led to believe from an early age that that's the gold standard, that you can't be happy unless you have, you know, this this soulmate or this
Yes.
ultimate love in your life, when you can live perfectly happy
Yeah.
without finding that. Or,
Yes.
there's nuance, there's varying degrees of love and all
Yes.
different kinds of relationships, right? So yeah. No, yeah, I thought that romance, that love atmosphere, or that component of the story was really interesting too. So
Would this make a
yeah.
good rom-com movie?
Yeah, I think so. With
Think
the
so?
right, maybe with the right actors,
Yeah.
I think it could be. Like, yeah, who would you get to play Vi? Because she's just so interesting. Um, I don't know. I
It's
think it
difficult
could.
because I don't know a lot of Asian
Yeah,
actresses that could do that. Ali Wong is the first thing that pops into my mind. I don't know if you know who she is,
yeah. I think I've
but
seen her before. Yeah,
I'm
for
sure
sure.
she could probably find somebody out there that would be good for that role. I think this almost seemed like a little bit of her type of style of comedy.
Yeah,
There was a kind of points where it felt not like it was Ali Wong's voice, but it was that quirky comedy, that deprecating humor that was kind of shining through for this character for me.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that, and at its heart, it's got balance for me because it is as insane and goofy and surrealistic as it was.
Yeah.
It also had the overarching theme of identity and
Yes.
what it's like to be a Taiwanese American, and how people ask you the question, oh, where are you from?
Yes.
The thinly veiled racism, whether intentional or not, is still just as bad, just as corrosive, or to your identity and stuff like that. I found that interesting.
Yeah,
So
that was in one of my notes. I felt she didn't explore that enough.
yeah.
However, in her defense, because right before this read a book called The Committed.
Oh,
Have you heard of the Sympathizer?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The guy's half French, half Vietnamese. He's serving in the South Vietnamese army, but he's a North Vietnamese sympathizer. In the
Oh,
second book, The Committed, he's in France, and it very heavily leans into that idea of identity of, well, I'm French, why aren't you accepting me? Well, I'm Vietnamese, why aren't you accepting me? So I think having read that to where it was so dominant, and then
yeah.
I turned to this, I may not have seen how effectively she used it because I was comparing those two.
Right. Yeah. That she could have leaned into that more, I think, like there were a lot of elements of the identity, like identity as a university student. She considered herself a failure, right?
Yeah.
And in the eyes of her parents, she thought she let them down, and disappointment, and her ethnicity, like it all kind of was like this overarching identity thing that she had going on, right? So I don't know. In that way too, I think she learned a lot from Blob, like because towards the end, he didn't know how to function in the world
Yeah.
either. So
And it was interesting too, because that was one of the things I felt that she did touch on in the novel was, when she first gets the Bob home, they're watching television shows, and
yeah,
all these things that he's watching and absorbing becomes part of him. So it's
right.
the media that we consume that, it molds us, shapes us into individuals in our thoughts at times. So it touched
Yeah,
on that, and it didn't lean too heavy into it. I thought it probably would have been preachy if it did, but I
yeah,
definitely felt that influence was there, especially knowing about how the romance novels and affected Vi and how the TV affected Bob. So that
yeah,
was there and it's prevalent into our social media driven
yeah.
society.
It's true. You do have to be careful what you consume, and I mean, everything is so fast now, right? Like really fast. It hits you. People's attention spans have gotten shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
And so now it's like you have a couple seconds to express big ideas
Yes.
or whatever. So it's even hard in the format of making a YouTube video to
Yes.
say, get your message out, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's another reason what I appreciate about books is it's still a slow media. It's still like something you can do at your own pace where it's not like the dopamine hit isn't so fast. You know what I mean? Like it's not, it takes a while. So
Big
yeah.
ideas remain big ideas.
Yeah.
I think when people try to put big ideas into social media, it makes them small ideas. Then people don't understand them, and then the ideas become lost.
Yeah.
That's
Or
why reading is still
trivialized.
so important in this social media age that we live in now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people, that's like, I seem to notice a lot of people popularizing the slow living idea, you know, getting back to simpler times or simpler ways of living that are less stressful, right?
Yes.
So yeah, but I don't know. I had a big question in this book that was glaringly obvious to me. I don't know if you found the same thing, but as I was reading it and getting closer and closer to the end of the book, I kept wondering, Vi is so smart and she has a you know, a science background a little bit. Why isn't she not asking where he came from? Like for me, that was the biggest question. And the more I thought of it, the more I thought it came maybe back to her ethnicity and how she didn't like being asked, where are you from? Maybe that's why she never put that question to him. She didn't want to put that on him either.
Yes.
I don't know. But I thought, okay, she's accepting that she found him as a blob.
Yeah.
She's not freaking out. She's kind of freaking out, but she's this whole time, but she never once said, oh, where did you come from?
Well, she thought it was a fish at first.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was a smart choice by the author too.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I was concerned about, you know, since they did introduce the blob so quick, you know, is this going to be a story and all of a sudden it's going to turn into a, where did you come from? So I'm glad the author didn't go that route.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, that's something that stood out to me, but then it made sense. Like you said, after it wouldn't have been the same book if she had gone more into that. So
plus the idea of identity too, that you mentioned, you know, you know, she grew up with people questioning her identity.
Yeah.
She doesn't want that to continue, so she's not going to question. Excuse me, question his identity when she realizes actually she can mold him into something. So.
Yeah, and like it's also a question of like, is there any such thing as perfect? Like, is perfection even possible?
Yeah,
I think, you know, the most attractive things are people's imperfections. That's what makes them have a personality and character and, you know, lived experiences and stuff like that. So, but yeah, so yeah, I liked it. How did you like it overall? Like, what would you rate this book?
I don't do a lot of stars, but in my journal I have, it gives me plot 1 to 5, setting 1 to 5, readability 1 to 5. I'm always concerned with readability is one of my biggest things. Is it accessible? You know, stumbling over ideas or just like that. Probably about 3 stars, 3.5, somewhere in there. It was engaging. I got through it in about 2 sittings. Like I said, it wasn't till the end where I really felt where it's like, okay, she lost some momentum here. And, you know, like I said, there was just that one area, if she just could have connected it a little bit better with her thought process.
Yeah.
I mean, this girl, she was like the scenes with her and the customers in the hotel were hilarious.
Hilarious.
I know. She was just,
Yeah, I know. And then, you know, I was happy when she quit, but I was surprised how long it took her to quit. Like she was so not enjoying it, but I don't know. She had so much going on with the blob and stuff. But yeah, for me too, where it dropped off was like after that great scene at Elliot's house with his family and stuff, then it kind of, I don't know, got less interesting but I just remember, it was cruising along really good. And then I got to a really slow, draggy part, like you said, toward the end. But,
and for the people that are watching this, the scene that we've referenced it twice, Elliot is a gay gentleman who hires Vi to go with him to I believe it's his graduation celebration and pretend that she is his girlfriend to throw off I don't gay scent. I hope that's not horrible, but just basically he wants to fool his family. And she sees this idealized version of a family there. And this messes it up. It just goes horribly off the rails. I don't want to go into too much detail. It's a great scene, and
Yeah,
it is the turning point in the book, more so, in my opinion, than what happens with Blob and Rachel.
yeah, yeah. And I'm glad that, I don't always like an ending that is too saccharine, too sweet, too
Mhm.
happily ever
Yeah,
after. Like that kind of turns me off.
yeah,
And it's one main reason why I don't read a lot of romance typically and stuff because I don't like those kind of tropes.
yeah,
But yeah, I was satisfied with
yeah.
how it worked out in the end. So I don't know how spoiler territory we're getting into here, but like, yeah, I thought it was appropriate, the
Yeah.
ending.
Yeah, I thought it was too. I mean, it's somebody in their mid-20s finding themselves. I mean, that's honestly, I think, at the bare minimum what the story was that's told around the hook that made me buy the
Yeah.
book was, oh, hey, I found this blob. I'm going to turn it into the perfect boyfriend.
Yeah.
You not want to pick that up and read that. So,
Yeah.
have you read Japanese authors at all?
Yeah. I have read a few translated Japanese books that I really like. Oh, I haven't read that one yet.
Okay.
I've heard a lot about it. Is it good?
I enjoyed it very much. And
Oh, okay.
it ties into some of the themes in Blob about body images with women and relationships.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
it was funny because what I do when I read a book, I got it in my reading journal and I'll write quotes down from it. So I'm writing the
Yeah.
quotes down from the book Butter, and I was like, wait a minute, and I flip back to my notes on Blob, and I'm like, oh wow. So the quote I wrote down from Butter is, if you are accepted by one person, then you didn't need to be someone whose beauty was acknowledged by everyone. That was
Wow.
a great quote. And then the note I wrote to myself was, even if that is yourself,
Mm.
accept yourself. And that's kind of what I felt happened in Blob.
Yeah.
At the point where she had to accept herself
Yeah.
and then go from there.
Yeah. For sure. Those are great quotes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love Japanese literature has a quality all of its own, like a real definitive quality.
Yes.
They're kind of quieter, more folklore kind of
Yes.
books. And I really love the convergence of modernity meets tradition
Yeah.
that you get with the Japanese. Like you get their
Yes.
culture
Yeah.
and a good dose of tradition, but then very modern. So yeah, I should read more Japanese lit for sure. But
I've like inadvertently just read three different authors, just like, oh, that sounds interesting. That
yeah,
sounds interesting. And one thing I've noticed that's been kind of common in all three of them, and it actually uh, worked with Blob too, was there's an element of something that they leave to the reader's imagination or viewpoint. I
Mhm.
read Colorist Tetsuko, and by Hakura Nakamura, wrote Kafka on the Shore, I believe.
Oh yeah,
I don't have it here, but I'm reading it, and he gets to the point where he wants to be in a relationship, and he tells the girl that, and she's like, okay, well, let me give you an answer, and then the book ends.
oh no,
Like, but then
yeah,
I just noticed that was carrying over to some of the other novels I read that were by Japanese authors. They want you to take your understanding of the novel and apply it to this piece they've left, not necessarily dangling out there. It still comes
yeah,
to a satisfying conclusion. It's just asking you to do a little bit more thinking once you've closed the book and finished reading.
yeah, yeah. I
And
appreciate that. It's
yeah,
nice when an author does that. They leave enough space for
yeah,
you to interpret it
yeah,
however you want, right? Like,
yeah.
yeah,
It
yeah,
tied to your point that you made about the blob not just ending with a sweet, oh, happily ever after. You don't
yeah,
really know where she's going to go from there. You just know she figured it out.
yeah,
It's up. You're kind of at that point in time when you discuss the book with people. Like if you're in a reading group, you're gonna be like, well, what do you think happened next? And then
yeah,
what are the depth of the novel and the themes that are going to come out. So
yeah,
it's an interesting thing that I come across that just inadvertently reading different books.
yeah,
Also interesting how sometimes when you read different books, things intersect that help you, by reading that quote and a few other things in Butter, it made me go back, look over my notes at Blob, and understand a few concepts that I could flesh out a little bit better.
yeah. And it's surprising. It surprised me. I thought this would be more of a fluffy book, but
Yep.
there was actually a lot more to it,
It
which I
has a
was
lot of
happy.
depth. Has a
Yeah,
lot of
there's more,
depth. I
a lot more
appreciated that.
substantial
Yep.
than I thought it would be for
Yep.
sure. So yeah, and I love it when you have a character you can root for, and
Yes.
Vi was one of those people that you just want her to succeed so much.
Yeah.
Like, and she did so much introspection and so much reflection on her Luke and on her mom and her brother and everything and her job. Like, I just wanted things so badly for her to go right and for her to, find herself. And so,
Who would
yeah.
you recommend this book to?
Yeah. Who would I
What type of
recommend
reader
it?
would you recommend this book to?
I would recommend it to anybody who likes magical realism. I think they would appreciate that because Blob it was always treated as importantly as the humans in the book,
Yes.
right? So magical realism fans, I would recommend it to anyone who likes a whimsical story, with some heart to it. Or even a sci-fi fan, I would say, because it kind of borderline sci-fi, like it's got some elements to it.
Well, because you are constantly thinking about where did this thing come from,
Yeah,
even though it's not addressed in the story, and the story ends, you don't feel anything different for the story for not knowing that,
right,
which is a talent in the author. If you read a story and you keep asking yourself, well, why? Why? The author's done something, admitted
right.
something, or done something wrong. And
Yeah, yeah, and I don't mind speculating.
yeah,
I don't mind speculative things. Like I love Emily St. John Mandel. I loved her books, her Station 11 book, the other two, Glass Hotel and Sea of Tranquility. Like, yeah, that kind of, oh, I wonder if it's this or I wonder if it's that,
yeah.
like thinking. So yeah, for sure. How about you? Who would you recommend this book?
I think anybody that likes coming of age tale.
Oh yeah, that too.
And you got people that, it's your 20s are not easy. You think
No.
you're gonna get it in your 20s, you don't. I was still trying to figure shit out into my 30s.
Yeah.
So
Oh
I think
yeah.
this is one of those books where the themes are accessible, the situation is accessible. You realize it's like, oh wow, I was talking, I had a job I didn't like, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to be in college, and I didn't think my parents were constantly writing me so it's
Yeah.
accessible in that. So anybody that likes a good coming of age story, uh,
Yeah.
with a very good first person review, I would highly recommend Blob.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like I said, it was more than I expected. I just
Yeah,
picked it up on a total whim because I saw the
same here.
cover and I thought, what could this possibly
Yeah,
be?
same
I
here.
couldn't even categorize it. So yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm glad I read it.
Yeah,
Like I said, I rated about a 4-star overall rating. So
yeah, I'm
yeah,
pretty close. Yeah, I'm pretty close on the area, especially now actually
yeah,
having talked to you. Yeah, a couple other things. I'll actually probably sit when the next hour or so, go back through my notes and add a couple things that you mentioned that I'm like, oh, I didn't
yeah.
look at it that way, and just see how it shifts my ideas about it.
Yeah, and I like it when a book stays with you for a
Yes.
while after you read it. Like this was so fast. Like I
Yeah.
read it in a couple sittings, but then a day or two later, I was still kind of thinking about it. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I would read something from her again.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah,
Oh yeah, definitely. I would when I see
definitely.
your second novel, I'll have it in my pre-order cart to go. Just unless
Yeah,
it's something way out of my wheelhouse, but I have a feeling if it's in this vein and
mhm.
especially if it's first person, I'll be on board because that was the thing that impressed me the most was her
Yeah,
use of the first person. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that really worked for me too. I love that about it. So yeah.
anything else?
I don't think so. I think we covered everything, like
Yeah,
what are the
we got through it. I like
themes.
that. We're really good at bouncing ideas off each other, and so. And I've noticed that
Yeah.
in your channel because you'll review books that I necessarily wouldn't read, but you're so
Yeah.
engaged with it. I'm just like, huh, maybe I would read that.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I appreciate your content too. I learn a lot about different titles that I wouldn't normally read. So, yeah.
Yeah, I got
So,
to
yeah,
get back on
thanks.
track. Being gone for 2 weeks set me back a little bit. So I've got a
Yeah.
mound of videos I want to record and so many great books
Yeah.
that I've read recently too. So
Yeah.
especially Tony, you have to read this.
Oh, yeah.
Please read this soon.
I will read that one.
I need somebody to talk with it about.
Okay. I'll let you know after I read that one.
Okay.
And maybe we can even do another collaborative video or
Oh,
something.
anytime. That's
Yeah.
the more that I was thinking, preparing for this, and I think it's something I would like to do more with my channel is have more
Yeah.
collaborative things like this with booktubers because I mean I
Yeah.
joined BookTube to be able to talk about books with people.
Right.
So I mean it's
Yeah.
great to do it in the comment section, but technology lets us just hook a
Yeah.
couple cameras and mics together and go at it. So
For sure. Yeah. No, this was great. Really fun for me too. I enjoyed it.
Oh, I had a blast.
So yeah, anytime.
All right. Hey, you enjoy the rest of
Yeah.
your day.
You too.
And I hope
Thanks,
your next
Blaine.
reading experience is a wonderful reading experience.
Yes.
I'm trying to make that a thing.
Yeah, for sure. We can only hope to read more great books. So
Yes, always.
yeah. Thanks, Dee.
Hey,
Take
have a
it
good day.
easy.
Bye.
You too. Bye.